to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not.
Hi, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith and Holly Blades. And we come to the final season review. And it's mine and Holly's opportunity to give you our favourite moments of the season, best signing, most improved player, best match, goal of the season and player of the season. So Holly, ladies first, give us your best signing.
Best signing has got to be Kieran Trippier, without a doubt, in my mind. I think he was the first person to come through the door that kind of set the ball rolling, really kind of encouraged other players to come through, because I think the likes of Bruno and stuff probably wouldn't have followed suit if there wasn't that initial superstar almost to come to the club. Big name, England international, was playing in Spain, won the Champions League, and then obviously came to Newcastle, and I think that was such an incredible signing. Best right back we've obviously had in years, and I think he made an initial impact in the team, showed the kind of captaincy qualities that we've seen from him throughout the season, and I think that's been great. I think that'll give Eddie Howe a bit of food for thought next season. Obviously with Jamal Lascelles kind of struggling in recent years, I think with the captain's position, I think that potentially Kieran Trippier could come in and replace him in that aspect. And he's just been great as a defender. And although his time was cut short, obviously with that injury, I thought that he was a massive part of us surviving this season, because I think even when he wasn't in the side, he was just constantly supporting the team. He was in the dressing room, he was in the stands, and he was really, really behind all the lads.
I can see why you're giving it to Kieran Trippier. Mine's Bruno, really because he's just that step above. He's another level of player, and we've discussed this on the show over the last few weeks. And since he got in the side, he's never looked back. And the goals he scored have been at times, mercurial, spectacular. They've been the way that he's brought other people into the game, the way that he's influenced players around him, and it just his all-round attitude. A new star has been born, and I just think the fact that he is, he has chosen Newcastle United ahead of Arsenal, for example, who European football club who are got European nights again next season, but he chose Newcastle, and he's come here and he's fitted right in. He's also inspired Joe Linton, his fellow countrymen, to bigger and better things. Eddie Howe's coaching's help. But for me, although I agree that Trippier was a catalyst, if you like, for the beginning of that transfer window, Bruno, none of us really knew much about him, would never have had him on a list of potential transfers, but he's come in, and we all know Bruno's name now. And putting aside the annoyance that the song that people sing for him is Matt Ritchie's song, it's just great to have a player of that level choose Newcastle, and it's a sign of hopefully things to come, because in the 90s, when we had the entertainers, we had players such as Ginola, Tino Asprilla, choosing Newcastle, and that's what you want. It's we're now not a joke club. We're not a sleeping giant. We're now looked at as a team that can a team that can be up there and challenging, and a team that a foreign import may well choose over one of the big six, and that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And Bruno, he's been amazing. Brazilian international, playing so well alongside Joe Linton, which you mentioned. And some of his goals have been fantastic. He's been a pleasure to watch. Can't wait to see him more next season. But, purely just because of being that initial player to get the ball rolling, I had to give it to Kieran Trippier.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Okay, the next category is most improved player. And I've got to be honest, I think me and you will probably agree on this, but again, over to you first. Newcastle United's most improved player.
Not just me and you, I think every Newcastle fan will agree on this, because it's probably the biggest transformation we've ever seen in football, and that's got to be Joe Linton. Fantastic he's been this season. Had that position changed, we initially brought him in as a striker. A lot of people were scratching their heads at that. Wasn't scoring goals, wasn't doing a great deal apart from holding the ball up, really, and then got put back into that midfield. Credit to Eddie Howe for discovering that, and he's been fantastic. And I think a lot was made of his price tag, the 40 million price. People were like, we've been ripped off. But I think now he's looking like a 40 million player in the position that suits him best. And he's been the standout midfield player in that side. You want him starting every week. He's got a bit more passion in his game, a bit more aggression. He really, really gets emotionally involved in games and just tries his absolute best no matter what. And I think it's very rare you'll say Joe Linton's had a bad game, because even when the team's struggling, he's putting that 100% work rate in. He's trying his best, and that's all you can ask from a player. So, off the pitch, I think his attitude's improved a lot. I think he's feeling a lot more confident because he's been given the benefit of the doubt and he's been given that chance from Eddie Howe. And then also on the pitch, his performances have been second to none.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Linton is certainly my number one choice in this category as well. We've ridiculed him on this platform at times. Super Matt and Gibbo in particular on the Thursday night show, just weren't Joe Linton fans. And I would say 95% of the fan base were the same, couldn't understand what Steve Nixon saw in him, what the club were doing, spending 40 million. I mean, I shared stories on here about Rafa Benitez being at Newcastle and being offered him for that price, 40 million, and he said he wouldn't pay 20. And at the time, Rafa was more interested in getting rid of Mitro and signing Chris Wood, and he didn't want to bring Joe Linton in. And there was the bizarre stories and rumours of him only being worth 20, but Ashley wanting to pay 40 and prepared to put 20 million of his own money in to the funds to bring him in. So we were all scratching our heads. We were all then in that gang of fans going, I told you so, he's rubbish, he's useless. And, he's made us all, and I mean all, eat our words. And I shared it on the show a while back when, when he started to perform to the best of his ability, and, he was putting in man of the match performances, and people were, we started referring him to as J7 as opposed to Joe Linton on here. And I actually took the time to email Steve Nixon at the club and apologise, just say, what do I know about football? Because ultimately, you clearly saw a player in Joe Linton. You certainly saw somebody who, was a footballer. And ultimately, a change in head coach is what was needed, and a change in direction. And from his position now, he's one of those players you would probably deem as, I guess, undroppable from the first team. So, credit to them. Credit to Steve Nixon. Credit to Eddie Howe for coming in and changing things. And even though Steve Bruce is in the past, and we all said good riddance when he left. I mean, even he said there's a player in there, so he might not have been able to coach the ability out of him, but Steve Bruce used to call him Big Joe, and always used to say there's a player in there, and he does this on the training ground. But unfortunately for him, Holly, Steve Bruce just couldn't coach the guy, and we didn't see the best of him.
I think that's a pattern that we've seen with a few players under Eddie Howe. We've seen a lot of people improve pretty much in every position. I think it's fair to say another few names that would stand out in my mind is Emil Krafth, of course. When we let go of DeAndre Yedlin, I was thinking, what are we doing? We've got Manquillo, who I was a big fan of, but I thought DeAndre Yedlin was better than Emil Krafth any day of the week. But then Emil Krafth's really stepped up this season. I think he's probably one of the most underrated players at Newcastle, and was a steal for the price that we paid. I think it was about $4.5 million. Also, John Joe Shelvey in that midfield, someone that's been at the club for what feels like forever. He's been great in the midfield. I know a lot of people still are a bit split on him. Some people like him, some people don't like him. But I think he's the best passer of the ball at the club. And I think he's definitely been a lot more consistent this season, because that was always my biggest problem with John Joe Shelvey. He'd have a great game and then he'd be horrendous the week after. But I think we've seen a level of consistency with Shelvey, and he's been pretty decent week in, week out, rather than having a brilliant performance and then a poor one. And the final name I think is worth a mention is Fabian Schär. Had a great start to the club. he did very well, had a couple of injuries, and I think under Steve Bruce, certainly in Steve Bruce's last season, his performances started to drop off a lot, and then under Eddie Howe, I feel like he's just been revitalised and he's back to that great defender that he once was.
Yeah, he couldn't get in the team, Fabian Schär. It was so strange, and you clearly thought, why is this international football and nowhere near the first team? What's gone wrong, People were scratching their heads. Again, another one, Emil Kraft, who genuinely, was third choice for most Newcastle fans. We all groaned and moaned when we saw Kraft coming into the team, and again under Eddie Howe, somebody who has just managed to find his best form. Again, he's an international footballer. We signed him, and we were expecting great things from him, and I guess even his own self-confidence took a knock, because I remember him coming out at one point under Bruce and saying, I realise I'm not the best fullback, I'm not the best player, and it was almost like a self-confidence thing, within him. And ultimately, Eddie Howe comes in, and when he was needed, he came in and he never let us down, to the point where a lot of people were going, well, you kind of drop him for Trippier, I mean, we all wanted Trippier back in the team because of what he can do and what he brings to the team, but it just seemed a bit hard on Emil Kraft because of his performance. But yeah, we both agreed. Joelinton, certainly the most improved player of the season. Long may it continue, and let's hope that there are bigger days ahead for Joelinton and the rest of the team next season. Okay, best match or performance of the season, Holly?
I don't have to think too far back to think of the best match this season, because for me it was the final home game of the season against Arsenal, the 2-0 win, and I thought that we really, really put pressure on Arsenal. We could have scored more than two probably, but Arsenal are a team that normally really like to push the other team back. They like to constantly be in and around the opposition's box, and they weren't doing that because we were just closing them down. We weren't allowing them that freedom, which often leads to conceding goals, and that's probably the opposite of how we played against them in November when we played at the Emirates, because I thought in that game we were pretty poor. We did kind of capitulate and allow them that freedom, which obviously then led to us being beaten by Arsenal. But it was a great comeback back at St James's Park, and not just on the pitch, off the pitch. The war flags display in that game was fantastic, and I think that certainly in my mind reminded me that there's something special about it happening at Newcastle, and it really felt magical. Obviously I missed the kind of Kevin Keegan days that everyone reminisces and talks about, but I'd imagine that's the closest feeling we've had since that era, where you just feel like, there is a bit of hope, there's something going to happen here, that it's an exciting time to be a Newcastle fan, rather than the doom and gloom that we've had for the past 14 years. So that game has got to be the standout performance, and also the game where we scored the most goals out of any game we have this season, beating Norwich 3-0 away at Carrow Road. I thought that was a great game as well. But unlike Arsenal, there was times where we did kind of sit back a little bit, got a little bit lazy. We were just felt comfortable winning 3-0, and I can understand that to a degree, but I love to see Newcastle just constantly for the full 90 minutes giving it all they've got, and they did that at Arsenal, not so much at Norwich, but it was a great 3-0 win to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal game definitely wins hands down for me. It was absolutely superb. Loved it. Atmosphere, as you say, war flags generated, pre-match was superb, and comprehensively the best team performance, by Newcastle in the season, and, deservedly getting 3 points and, putting a spoke in the wheels of Arsenal's Champions League qualification. Leeds away for me, because it was Leeds, because it was such a big, important game in that relegation battle against a relegation rival. The atmosphere was great. I mean, Leeds banging out, marching on together. We had a decent spot in the ground as well, for the banter and backwards and forwards with the Leeds fans. But genuinely a game which, I enjoyed and really, really enjoyed towards the end of the season. I guess I look at maybe Burnley at the end of the season. The Burnley game was a little bit different for me because I was sitting with Burnley fans. And I've never, ever experienced the emotion that I experienced that night and, that afternoon, because, Newcastle were safe. They shouldn't have been safe. They started the season without a win in 14 games. No team had ever done that, and no team had ever survived. But then they went on that wonderful run of 9 games unbeaten, and then, again, subsequently another great run at the end of the season, which saw us finish 11th. But that meant that the fear of a relegation dogfight in the at the end of the season against Burnley, was avoided, and we could sit back, and relax and watch the game unfold. And Newcastle really have come such a long way that didn't have to get out of first gear. And although it wasn't as exciting as the Arsenal game the week before, it was another good win. It was and ultimately it sent them down. But that for me was another memorable game for different reasons. I haven't done this with other people, but worst game for me was Wolves. Wolves away, and you're nodding your head. I thought you would, because obviously we've been to virtually every game away from home together this season with your dad Dave, and we've had some great times, but we've had some bad times, and that was a particularly bad day. Wolves away. We went to the wonderful hospitable away support end where there was I think the highlight was meeting the mascot for me. But yeah, we stood there having a warm drink in the rain. We then went to watch Steve Bruce's final game of his tenure, and Newcastle were awful, and we got soaked, and people were arguing the toss behind us. It was just a horrible, horrible day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I wish that was Steve Bruce's last game, but it wasn't. He did have the Spurs game in charge.
True, last away game, yeah.
Yeah, last away game. But yeah, it was just an awful game. Obviously, Mike Ashley's last game as owner of the club as well, because the game after that was the Spurs game, which was the first game under the new owners. And it was just an awful day. I think the weather and what we were seeing on the pitch very much matched each other. It was a gloomy, miserable day. The team looked very uninspired. Steve Bruce looked uninspired, like he just didn't want to be there. He looked like he wanted his P45 and just to have his pay off and go. And could I blame him? Probably not. I think anyone that was going to have 8 million would just want to leave in that position. And you could tell he never wanted to be there in the first place, let's be honest. But it just really summed up what it's been like in the past 14 years, and it just felt like a club that was only going in one direction, which was down, and it looked like there was no way back from that. We saw Jeff Hendrick score, which was probably the highlight of that day, one of his very few goals at the club. But apart from that, there was nothing good to say about that game, and I think that was a very low point in the season. And thank God the takeover happened quickly after, because I dread to think where we would be now if it hadn't have happened. And at that point, though, we didn't have any kind of clue that the takeover was going to go through. I think a lot of people thought there was no way it was happening. It was off because of how long it dragged on. So, it was just a very bad time to be a Newcastle fan, and the opposite of how it feels to be a Newcastle fan now.
Which takes us nicely to moment of the season. Your moment of the season, it can be on the pitch, it could be off the pitch, it could be anything. It could be something that's a personal thing to you, Holly. What was your moment of Newcastle United season 2021-2022?
Carpool karaoke. I'm joking, not really. Actually,
I was at, just to let you know, and I will send you this. I haven't sent you this yet. I was at the wedding of one of my good friends on Saturday, and the singing waiters were on, and the singing waiters had a little surprise for me, didn't they? I got called up to sing Tony Christie's song "Sweet Caroline," because Chris Dacres, who runs the singing waiters, actually knew I was at the wedding and said, "Oh, get Steve Wraith up, he's a good singer." And at that time, Erin Dawes left to go to the toilet, went to the toilet. I'd sang the whole song on stage with the singing waiters, and then she came back to the table as I was coming off. And everyone went, "God, your Steve was great, he was up singing, etc." And she went, "Was he?" So absolutely fantastic. So I will send you the clip. Although it's not the full song, I will send you it. I may even show it on the show one week. You never know.
So I'm guessing the singing waiters clearly weren't a fan of the groom because they wanted to ruin his wedding getting you on stage.
I tell you what, it was a good performance. I pulled it out of the bag, believe you me. It's because I look like Phil Collins. It was in the air tonight. So Holly, moment of the season.
Yeah, clearly I wasn't being serious with that. I haven't gone insane, guys. Don't worry. Moment of the season. off the pitch, it's got to be the 7th of October, the day the takeover went through. What a fantastic day. I was out from like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning because we had kind of the news last night that something was probably going to be happening. Went straight to St. James's. It was quite quiet. And then obviously it got busier and busier, and people started to think around tea time, is it going to happen? Because we've been waiting literally all day. I decided, spur of the moment, to obviously go up to the Jesmond Dean house. Lucky enough to meet Amanda and Mia, which is probably still one of the best moments of my life. It was just so perfect. I thought I wasn't going to see them, and then they just came out the blue. And obviously being recognised for me was insane because, like, I'm just a fan, like, from the Northeast and stuff. Like, it just felt really surreal, and it still does feel surreal. So that was great. And then obviously just going back to St. James's, joining everyone celebrating, and it was like the entire of Newcastle was out that night. St. James's Park was just insane. Like, you would have thought it was a trophy parade and we'd won the league, because that's the kind of atmosphere it was. And I think it was just not only a celebration of having new owners, which have clearly been publicly kind of named as being the richest owners in the world, but also just a celebration of the fact that Mike Ashley's no longer at the football club, and we've got a little bit of hope back, because I think everyone can agree that it was a horrendous period of time under Mike Ashley, and we don't want to mention his name anymore because we're just depressing ourselves. But yeah, that was the highlight for me.
Yeah, my highlight was, again, the same as you. I can't go beyond October the 7th. It was a different day for me because I've been pushing the immovable object, which was Mike Ashley, for 14 years, so it felt. And, that whole takeover scenario took it out of me massively. And it was ringing John Waff from the Magpie Group on the day of the takeover that he warned me that I would probably feel emotionally wrecked. And that's exactly how I felt. And, although, best part of Newcastle City Centre was full of Newcastle fans. From my perspective, I just couldn't go out. I was sitting at home, and I just felt shattered. So, although it's my moment of the season, the takeover going through, it was just so difficult to be able to, to take it all in. And I just decided, that was it. But yeah, fantastic. And when you look at what's happened over the last few months, it's been absolutely superb. To see, Amanda and Mia Dad make so many changes along with Jamie and PIF, and get to that position where, the communication with the supporters, something we've banged on about on this show for many, many years, and within fanzines and stuff like that, and at events, where we've been campaigning against the previous regime. It's been absolutely fantastic to see them make so many strides forwards in a small space of time, a short space of time, and long may it continue. The links with the food bank, the links with United with Pride, and building up the foundation, and cleaning up the ground and making little changes, moving the Shearer statue back to where, back into St. James's Park where it should have been in the first place, changing 9 Bar back to Shearer's. All minor things maybe in the grand scheme of things, but big things. Getting the transfer budget, and spending it properly in January, and bringing the right kind of players in, getting rid of Steve Bruce at the right time and bringing in the right manager. So many things that they've done right so far. And, ultimately there will no doubt be mistakes. There will be things that are done which, we don't agree with, or some of us don't agree with. And, those bridges will have to be crossed, but they've got off to a great start. And as I say, long may it continue. But I don't think, many people would look past October the 7th as a date of, significance in our, not just short-term history, but long-term history, full stop. And again, I find myself agreeing with you, Holly. I can't see past that. So, great stuff. Okay, big thanks as always to our sponsor, Spider Miner. Worldwide coverage from the lads at Spider. And it's the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to the lads at skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.guhd.com. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walsall, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. And thanks to ClearKai. Meet the new game over screen. Drop into a ClearRun device near you. Available on Apple Store, Google Play, and clearrun.game. Thanks to Media Arts for all the video help that they give us. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share these social media, and drop in the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to leave a question for the panel. Some of you saying you can't get notifications for the show, you miss your favourite show, then the little bell under the video is what you need to hit, and you can click on there and click all notifications, and you will get notifications for every single show. It usually gives you a notification half an hour before and when it's starting, but well worth hitting that bell and subscribing to the channel. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. If you want to become a member, you can do so in two ways. You can click join on YouTube, which is the cheaper option, or you can put your phone camera over this QR code if you've got a smartphone, and it takes you straight to the NUFC Matters membership pack. Why should you get this one? It is a tad more expensive. It is a one-off fee, but you will go into the members draw once a month. You will get a cup, you will get a scarf, you'll get a pen, and a membership card. The membership draw takes place once a month, and next month it is a season ticket for the Platinum Club, which is up for grabs, or the cash equivalent, which is £1,000. This has been given to us by John at qtechshop.co.uk, and we thank them for that. So if you want to join, get yourself to membership on nufcmatters.com. If you are a subscriber of the channel, you can claim your free car sticker by simply emailing John at nufcmatters.com, and he will post it out to you free of charge. Don't forget as well, we support the food bank on this channel. NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk is where you can make a virtual donation throughout the summer, which is vitally important, as of course the food bank stall is not operational, as there are no games until the end of July when we have 2 pre-season fixtures. Don't forget as well, we have our summer party coming up. NUFC Matters presents Mick Lowes and Andy Griffin, Friday the 24th of June. Doors at 7 o'clock. Entry only tickets £12, VIP 15, which includes a meet and greet and photo. The event takes place at Shearer's Bar at St James's Park, and the tickets are available from nufcmatters.com, and you can get your tickets now. Don't forget, this is also doubling up as our end of season party. And if you want to win, have a chance of winning a signed Alan Shearer ball, get yourself to nufcmatters.com. There are still some tickets left for the raffle. $2.99 to enter, 99 tickets to buy, and you can enter that today. It is a lovely ball. 100% genuine, and Vince Smith, who was often in the chat, will tell you those balls are absolutely spot on. Don't forget as well, in memory of my late mother Celia Wraith, we are doing a special screening of The Crazed Gangsters Behind Bars Saturday the 11th of June at the Irish Centre in the concert room. Doors are at 12 o'clock and the screening starts at 12:30. Tickets are £5. All proceeds go to St Bede's Palliative Care Unit of the QE Hospital, and you can book those tickets as well at nufcmatters.com. Just look for the shop option and go down and buy the tickets. There are some free ones still available, which Chris Hall, he bought 5, and John from QTech, he bought 20, have donated to people in the chat. How do you claim them? Simply go to the website and email John at nufcmatters.com, and he will allocate you a free ticket or 2. So don't forget, there are free tickets left, and you can get them in that way. And that's all for the adverts on this particular show. So we are going to move on now to the next category, which is goal of the season, Holly. So who is your goal of the season going to go to?
Miggy Almiron, and it did win Premier League Goal of the Month on the month that he did score it, and well deserved from Miggy. He was unbelievable, and it was against Crystal Palace at home. He got the cross from Bruno, headed it down obviously took it on his left foot and curled it straight into the top left corner, and it was just unbelievable. It was one of them goals where you think, how on earth has he scored that? And Miggy's someone that I feel like gets a lot of unjust criticism at times, and people are very harsh on Miggy because people say he does a lot of running and he doesn't really have a lot of end product. And I think on that day he proved everyone wrong, because he's got skill, he's got ability, and he does struggle at times, but I definitely think Miggy's good enough to be in the plans for the next couple of seasons, certainly next season. And I think that he started to prove that towards the last few games. And he's had a difficult time, I think, at Newcastle. He came in initially under Rafa in the January. He was in that front three with Rondon and Perez, did very well. And then obviously the change of manager at Steve Bruce started to struggle a little bit more. And I think he's another player that has started to improve under Eddie Howe, but he started to do that more towards the end of the season. So we haven't seen how good he can be yet, but I think that he will be great. And that goal was just great. Standout goal for me, brilliant. Closely followed, I think, by Kieran Trippier's over the wall free kick against Everton. I know we got two of them, but the one against Everton was my favourite personally, again at home. And his song, Kieran Trippier Over the Wall, a great song. Obviously, much to the annoyance of Ryan Taylor, I can imagine stealing his song, a bit like Bruno with Matt Ritchie. But yeah, that was a great goal as well. So those would be my top two.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to pick a goal of the season. And I mean, Miggy Almiron's goal was, superb. I discounted it because I wasn't there. I like to be there. I can, that's the way I differentiate between my goals, I guess. Similarly with Bruno's wonderful back heel. Again, it's a game I missed, so I wasn't there. So I've gone for a goal. I've gone for a goal where I was there and I saw it, and it gave me immense pleasure. And that was Kieran Trippier's free kick, the first one over the wall. The one that his very first goal. I just the fact that you had the anticipation of him stepping up, taking a free kick and scoring. I mean, I know you got two, didn't he? You got two goals this season. One was slightly different, but for me, the goal that went over the wall was the one for me, and I just. It was the anticipation. It was the fact that the crowd got behind him and started singing. And it was the fact that he didn't leave us hanging. He scored a wonderful goal. And I'm hoping we see many, many more of them. I love the Almiron goal. And I love Bruno's back heel. I love the persistence of the one he scored when he got the brace as well. When he toe poked the one in. And it was a bit of a debate as to whether that was going to count. Any goal by Joe Linton as well, I guess, for me, was always noteworthy because he doesn't score that many. And Callum Wilson as well. I mean, we might not have scored a plethora of goals last season, but some of the goals we scored were so important, so vital in that relegation run-in. But yeah, Kieran Trippier, I just think because you anticipate, you expect, and so many free kicks under the previous manager, or managers, I guess, have never found the target. But to have one, not two, do that under a new signing were absolutely fantastic, Holly. So Kieran Trippier gets my vote in the goal of the season.
Yeah, I can understand, and that was obviously my second choice as well because it was great.
Okay, player of the season, Holly. Again, Malcolm MacDonald this week said, player of the season, I couldn't give one, but I could give player of the half season. Are you the same, or have you managed to find somebody who was consistent all the way through?
But I'll probably be the same as Malcolm, but it'll be less than half of the season. And I know there was players that was consistent all the way through as well. And I know a lot of people will be going for the likes of Joe Linton, Bruno, Matt Targett, John Joe Shelby even, because I think a lot of people were impressed with him. But for me, I'd probably go again, same person that I picked for signing of the season, and that's going to be Kieran Trippier. And a lot of people will be questioning that because he didn't have a lot of game time. It was cut short, obviously, with his foot injury. But I think, just like I said, it was just that impact that he made. For me, he was like one of the pivotal points in the new ownership's start at the club, because that was that signing. Everyone's got to make that first signing, and if you get that signing right, I think that sets the initial impression of the owners, and they did get that right, and he was a great signer. And then just the way I think he transformed kind of the dressing room, and I think that is what stands out to me more than necessarily what he did on the pitch. And he was brilliant on the pitch, but just I think he really put a lot of kind of fight into that dressing room. I think he made people try that a little bit harder. We saw how passionate he was. Various times he would be on the touchline when he was coming back into the side and he was training on the side of the pitch, he'd be shouting, he'd be so emotionally invested in the game, he'd be in the stand supporting. And I think we haven't seen a player that supported his teammates as much as Kieran Trippier. And you look at Callum Wilson, when he got his injury, obviously he went off, did his own thing to get back to full fitness, but Trippier was travelling to every game despite not being able to play. And that will always go down well with me, and I know a lot of fans, because I think that shows the level of commitment that he has. And I honestly believe that he played a vital part in us not going down this season. I think if we didn't sign Kieran Trippier, I'm not saying we would have went down, but I don't think we would have finished 11th, and I think we would have found it a lot harder and struggled a lot more.
Okay, mine is Joe Linton, player of the season. Really because he played the full season, and in that first half of the season, when he wasn't having the best of times, in fact, he was having the worst of times, he kept his head. He kept his head up. He kept cracking on. He kept smiling, and he kept, his sanity. And there was no letdown from him. He might not have been the best of players, and it might have been disappointing for us all. And the fact that he had to put up with the ridicule on and off the pitch from people, in the crowd and people online, like us. People on shows like this and in fanzines, biggest waste of £40 million, to then turn around as he did, as we've already discussed on the show, we've given him most improved player as well, to become Newcastle United's official player of the season, to learn how to put the ball in the back of the net, to learn how to, be the midfield defensive giant that he's become, just completes an amazing turnaround, and to be part of a team that ultimately started the start of the season and didn't win a game or get a point in 14 games, to become the first team to do that in the Premier League, to turn that around and to stay up, means for me there was no other choice. I understand some people judging the season from the 7th of October or the turn of the year when the transfer window closed and we got these new players in. But yeah, I think sometimes you have to reward a player for the ups and the downs, and the fact that he actually continued and continued to turn up, put his neck on the line and put his reputation on the line the way he did, I thought was fantastic. So for me, Joe Linton, player of the season, and very, very well deserved. And just to sum up, Holly, really, can you quite believe it if I'd said to you, at Wolves that day when we were soaking wet, watching another Stephen Bruce masterclass, and I'd said to you, Newcastle United, we're going to finish 11th, what would you have said?
Well, I could have imagined you saying that because of how positive you've been all season, if I'm being honest. I think that was doing my head in at the start of the season. We were very much the opposite. I was sitting kind of feeling depressed, being like, there's no way back. We're going down. We're straight to the Championship. I don't care what happens in January. That's it for me. And you were always like, no, I think we'll drag ourselves out of it. And you were right. And thank God you were right. And I'll happily admit that. But 11th, yeah, I think even you would have thought that was a bit ambitious, even though you were so positive, because it's literally, one place off being in the top half of the league. And when we were rooted in the bottom three for so long, and struggling so much, obviously not winning any of our first 14 opening games tells its own story. The first club to come back from that, and finishing 15th, 16th would have been a brilliant achievement. But 11th, I think, definitely doesn't match the start of the season. But I was delighted that we finished 11th. And if we can do that this season, what can we do next season? I'd love to see us try and tap into that top half.
We're just going to enjoy the ride, Holly, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. And I know most of you who tuned into this show over the course of the season have thoroughly enjoyed this. So, Great War Plate, we have had numerous delicious dishes sent in to us. Next week is going to be the big reveal. So Holly is going to go through the list this week. She is going to come up with the top 10. I believe there might be a top 10, and we're going to select 3, which we are going to eat at the Andy Griffin McLaw's night at Shearer's Bar. I know you've been looking through the list. Don't mention any of those dishes. We'll leave it as a surprise till next week. But has your stomach been turning this week, Holly?
At some of them, yes. I'm not looking forward to it.
I think we might need this.
I 100% agree.
Great stuff, Holly, as always. Thanks for joining us on the show. Looking forward to having you on next week. A lot of the shows moving forward now will be obviously focusing on pre-season friendlies, looking ahead to, looking at the transfer window and whatever is in the news from the last 7 days at Newcastle United. So looking forward to having you back on the show next week. Take care, Holly, and say hi to your dad.
I will. Take care.